Today is January 30th, 2021. We are at the Lake Road parking lot, which is off of Old Church Road. It can be accessed from, if you go to Old Church Road off of Route 183 and head west, you'll see Lake Road on the left, and I guess the address would be Lake Road, Burnville, Pennsylvania. We'll post some information in the About page of this video to tell you exactly where it is. But we're going to be walking down the road. You can see there's a gate here. This is the old Lake Road, and the trail that we're going to be taking today is the Skinner's Loop Trail. It has a lot of interesting history. It is comprised partly of the old Lake Road and then partly of some field roads that were made when it was farmed back here, and now they're incorporated into a loop. That it is not, the Skinner's Loop is not part of the official multi-purpose 30-mile trail, 29 or 30-mile trail. It's just one of the loops. The road that we're on now, Lake Road, is just an access road that leads down to the trail system and to Skinner's Loop. As we get down to the bottom of the hill from the Lake Road parking lot, we come to an intersection where the road bears to the right, and the old asphalt road bears to the right, and then there's a trail that goes off to the left. The trail on the left and the trail on the right are actually part of the multi-purpose trail, and you can see the old arrows on the ground here. One that points to our left tells us that that's the way we go to join the multi-purpose trail, and the arrow that points straight ahead tells us that if we head straight ahead on this trail, we'll be on the multi-purpose trail. We're going to show you something before we get, because the video that we're doing today, the section that we're doing today, is of a trail loop called Skinner's Loop, and it's a little bit hard to see on film here, but there are remnants of an old stone wall. You can just see a bunch of stones kind of piled up here, and as we walk back here off of the trail and go back around the corner, we're going to find an old stone structure built completely out of stone, and you can see that people have been walking back to look at it. There's a little bit of a trail here. Anyway, there's the wall. And we get up here a little further, you'll see remnants of concrete on the ground here in the stones. But as we get up here a little bit farther, we get past this undergrowth, there's the inside of the building. We're not really sure what it was. We need to find someone that knows this area, knows the history of the area, who can tell us what this building really was. And when we get up here a little bit farther, as we move along this trail to join the Skinner's Loop Trail, you'll see again there's remnants of asphalt here. There's an old, some sort of a rail under the earth here, and you can see it a little bit better when we get up to here. It looks like some sort of a walkway or something. And it runs along the asphalt trail, so we're not really sure what that is. And get up here, a little more asphalt remnant, and I believe as we head around the corner here, we may be able to find the remnants of an old, what looks like a garage door track. And if you look through the woods here, you can see that wall that we just looked at the inside of that building. Let's head back here and see if we can find that old overhead door track, and here it is. Remnants of an old, like, garage door or overhead door track. So there must have been some structure back here before the lake was built that had some sort of an overhead door. There's lots of pieces of it laying around here. So now we're going to head back along this connector path that will take us back to Skinner's Loop, which is where we're going to do our video today. And again, as we find all along the trail system, here's an old wall, the remnants of an old wall, some sort of an old foundation. So there was some sort of structure back here along Lake Road. I'm sure it was part of a farm or a residence. Let's head back here, and we will intersect with the Skinner's Loop Trail, and I'll try to give you a perspective here. Let's get our bearings. When we came down from the Lake Road parking lot, we came down that road right there, and you can see the Multipurpose Trail hiking signs here. There's one right there. There's another one here. However, if we look to the right, we can see another trail. Well, that's part of what used to be Lake Road and is now part of the Skinner's Loop trail system. We're going to take the easy way today. If we go up the Multipurpose Trail this way and we get close to the top of the hill, we'll be able to turn right to get on the Skinner's Loop Trail. And that way we'll be walking down some large hills as opposed to having to walk up them on the way back. So let's walk up this hill, and we'll start filming again when we pick up the intersection of the Skinner's Loop Trail. We've just come to an intersection. This is the hill that we just climbed. We came up this trail from Lake Road. This is a four-way intersection. If we turn this way, there's a field road that would lead back up to the Lake Road parking lot. You can't see the parking lot from here, but it's just up over the hill, and we would follow it in this field road. Now keep in mind, this is the trail we just came up. If we were to turn, or I'm sorry, if we were to head straight ahead, we would still be on the Multipurpose Trail. However, there's no markings to tell us that, and we've had countless people tell us that they've tried to hike the Skinner's Loop Trail and they've gotten lost in the sense that they continued straight ahead on the Multipurpose Trail. So today we're going to take the Skinner's Loop Trail, which is up this way. So you climb to the top of the hill after Lake Road, and we'll turn right, and it'll take us back on the Skinner's Loop Trail. That's what we're going to do right now. As I mentioned in one of our other video segments, if we travel the loop this way, the hills aren't quite as steep as, and we'll be going down the hills instead of having to come up the hills if we had come the other way. We're on the top of the hill at one of the Skinner's Loop trails, and over on the side here you can see some live Christmas trees, some evergreen trees that were dumped on the side, and the Corps of Engineers and I imagine the State Game Association, Pennsylvania State Game Association, or administration I should say, allows people to drop Christmas trees off at various spots, and then they haul them back to these areas where they'll just kind of decay naturally and they won't do any harm to the environment. And then over here you'll see a pole, and about 3/4 of the way or more up the pole you'll see some sheet metal wrapped around the pole, and then up above it you'll see a crossbar. And that would have been where there was a bird house, some sort of a nesting house on the top, and the idea was to keep the squirrels out of it. So the squirrels couldn't climb up past that, get a grip on that aluminum or sheet metal and be able to climb past it. The problem is the undergrowth has grown up along the pole. So the squirrels, if that house was still up there, the squirrels would just be able to climb up the underbrush and get in there anyway. So we're basically just about at the highest point in the Skinner's Loop Trail. We're going to walk off the road here for a second and show you that there's a cut down through the field, and it goes all the way down to a lower trail, and that lower trail is along the water's edge, and that's where we're going to be walking when we come back out. We're going to walk all the way back on the top trail and walk out on the lower trail. Just as a point of interest, there's some more Christmas trees there, and there's a few more down here, one or two that still have tinsel attached to them. But this is where the rangers bring them to just kind of discard them and let them decay and feed the environment. We'll head on down this trail, and you can see as we get to the edge here, the reason that I chose this top trail was so that we wouldn't have to walk up this hill on the way back out. It's not a hard hill, but it's a hill nonetheless. I think there's a steeper one up ahead, and we'll be walking down instead of up. A few more Christmas trees that were dropped off along the road, and there's even more as we head down the road. I guess the idea is to spread them out a little bit so they don't all just end up in one massive clump. But they can make nice bedding areas for some of the wildlife before the trees decay, and they decay along with the rest of the environment to provide nutrients for the soil. And it's also a nice way of not filling up landfills or having people just drop their Christmas trees along the side of the road. Walking along what I would call the upper road, or the upper trail of the Skinner's Loop trail system. And the story behind this, that we've been told by reputable sources, is that this area, Skinner's Loop, with all of the fields and the open areas, was originally owned by the state of Pennsylvania, and this was going to become a state park as opposed to part of the Army Corps of Engineers park system. The state was going to use this as a campgrounds area, and they even went so far as to dig a well down here where we'll see a hand pump in a little bit alongside of the trail. And we're also going to see partially finished bathhouse that was going to be part of the camping area, part of the state park camping area. Somewhere along the line, the state either ran out of money or someone lost interest politically, and the Corps of Engineers ended up taking over this tract of land, Skinner's Loop, and they said they don't allow camping in their areas. So the hand pump is still alongside of the trail. It's not operational, and the bathhouse is partially finished and will probably never be finished. We just passed a runner who was out for a nice run and got confused at the intersection of the Multipurpose Trail, was trying to get back to his car, which is parked at the Old Church Road trailhead, and because there were no signs at the intersection, he ended up branching off here on the Skinner's Road Loop, or the Skinner's Loop. Probably did an extra 3 miles that he didn't intend to do. So it's just one example of how without the trail signs and without being able to look at a map as you're traveling along here, which would be hard to do if you're running, it can be somewhat confusing. So we really recommend studying the maps and bringing a map with you the first couple of times you come out here until you're familiar with the trail system. But we have come to an intersection that you'll see on the map, and you can also see this is last year's Christmas trees that have all decayed. There's a great big pile of them there. We've come to an intersection where we're going to be headed down into the woods, and straight ahead of us, past those piles of dirt, is the road that we're going to be taking when we head back out. That's the lower road, and that was actually Lake Road before Blue Marsh Lake was built. So let's get down here to the intersection, and we will turn left to go into the woods. And here we are, headed into the woods. And if you look at it on the map, this is the point where the trail loops kind of meet up, and the woods loop meets with the field loop. So let's head down here a little bit, and then we'll start filming when we get back on the the intersection, at the intersection loop. And this is the intersection where, if you look on your map, you'll see that the trails intersect. This loop goes back into the woods. On the way out, we'll take this lower loop, and that'll take us on the lower road. But this is where the loops intersect, the trails intersect, and you got some really interesting things to see just a piece ways up the trail here. So we'll start filming again then. All right, we're on the Skinner's Loop Trail, and as you come up to here, you would have to be really observant and look back into the woods to see something back there. We're going to take you back there because we happen to know that it's there. So we will make our way back into the woods and show you what we found back here years ago. And we keep getting more and more background and stories on it. And what we learned is that we're looking at a partially finished structure that was intended to be a bathhouse. And the bathhouse was going to be part of a campgrounds built by the state of Pennsylvania. You can see some of the rocks that they left behind here as they were gathering rocks to make the stone walls. And this area is now owned by the Army Corps of Engineers, and they've posted it. They don't want us to go in there, and we're not going to. We'll peek in, and you'll see the holes in the ground, which were going to be part of the latrine system, or the bathhouse system. And so you can see the stone walls are all moss covered. You can see that the doorways were built into the stone. But never quite got finished. So if you are not real observant, you could probably pass this section of trails many times and never know that this partially finished bathhouse was here. And there's the sign. Believe it or not, this sign was put up within the last year or two. I have a feeling that they took some of the steel plates out that were covering up these holes, and it was then that they decided they better keep people out of there. So let's head back over to the trail system now, and we'll show you something else that's of interest. We'll make our way through the woods here, head back over to the trail. This area, just as a word of warning, is notorious for ticks in the summertime. This time of year we don't have to worry about it, but in the summertime this area is kind of loaded with ticks. So you want to be careful that you wear light colored clothing in the summertime, and that you check yourself pretty closely when you get out of a hike in this area. Make sure you don't bring any ticks home with you. And now we're back out on the trail. That's the way we came in on the trail. We're going to continue just a few steps down this way, and you'll see on the right hand side of the trail here is an old hand pump for a water fountain. This was going to be part of the campgrounds, and they had actually dug a well and put this hand pump in, and then it just never got finished. So let's continue on down the trail. Just beyond the hand pump, which is back there, come to another intersection. If you look on the map, you'll see that you can go either way. The beauty of it is it's a loop, so you can go either way. Today we're going to take the left-hand loop, head up this road, and this is an old field road, or an old access road, where there were summer homes and bungalows that were built back here, and occasionally we can find some of the old foundations, and we really wish we could get a little more information on what was back here before the lake was built. We find a little bit more as we dig deeper, but haven't really found a good single source to be able to find maps and pictures of the area before the lake was built. Continuing up the hill on the left trail for Skinner's Loop, I feel like the hill is a little less steep coming up this way as opposed to coming up by taking the right trail and having to hike up the hill from the other side. We're going to try to find some old foundations up here. As you're walking the trail system, you have to kind of keep your eyes peeled for things that were kind of left behind when the lake was built. There's a concrete block. So I would say it's a good bet that there's something in the area, a remnant of an old foundation, and here we go. There is, you can see the walls on either side and an old staircase. So we're going to take this staircase and, being very careful, we'll head up the steps, see if we can find anything at the top. And it looks like remnants of a foundation or some sort of structure. And what do we see? Well, there's some old pieces of concrete block, and I would say some stones that may have been part of a foundation. This area looks like it was sort of hollowed out into a flat area. Let's walk a little further back into the woods, and when we get up to the top, we'll see on this trail that we have broken through to the other side of the lake. And this particular branch of the lake, if you're looking straight ahead, that's a cove that goes back to close to Route 183. But this branch to the left goes all the way up to Burnville, to the Scheide boat launch. And if we look to the right, this is where this section of the lake joins up with the main channel of the lake. So there was some sort of structure up here on top of the hill. It doesn't appear that there's enough of it left. Although as I look down, not sure if you can see it on the film, there's more remnants of concrete blocks in the distance. So there was definitely some sort of a structure up here that was demolished when the lake was built. So now we're going to head down, back down to the trail on the steps that we found. And we're going to be very careful as we do that because they're pretty steep and they're covered with leaves and dirt. There we go. And we're down at the bottom. So now we're back on the trail system again. We're going to continue on Skinner's Loop. And when we get down to the bottom part of this trail, I think we'll find some other remnants of foundations and stone driveways and things like that. I wanted to get a shot of this trail as it leads down the hill. As we get a little farther along, you'll see the trail is washed out a little bit and it's been filled in with gravel and stones to try to keep it from washing away anymore. But I came back this way. I chose this route because I feel like the hill that we had to come up to get to here is a little less steep. So if you can imagine that we came in on the Skinner's Loop trail, we came upon the hand pump, we turned left and went up the hill. We're coming around on this loop now, which is going to join us up down at the bottom, and we'll walk out the lower trail, which I don't think features hills that are quite as steep. Here's some of the stones that I was talking about where the rangers have maintained the trail, put some of these stones in to keep it from washing away. It had been really rutted for a while after being washed away over the years. And he did a nice job of smoothing it back out for horseback riders, bicyclists, and even for us hikers. We're on the final segment of what I would consider to be the upper trail of the Skinner's Loop woods portion of the trail. And as we get down to the bottom, well, in fact, as we're moving along here, you can see that even more stones were installed and used to fill in. This trail was really, really rutted for quite some time, and this is really nice to be able to fill this in and let the drainage occur through the stones as opposed to washing the earth away. But as we get down here to the bottom, you'll see that there's a small trail that leads down to the water. We're going to take that when we get down here. We'll start filming again then. Here we are at the bottom of the loop, at what I consider to be the upper trail, or the upper road, the upper loop. We came down this trail. We're going to be going back this trail, which is the lower, what I consider to be the lower loop. But first, let's walk down to the water's edge and give you a view of the lake from this vantage point. You can see the trail is well used, and we'll be getting down to where, since this time of year, the water level in the lake is lowered by about 5 feet. We have access to the water's edge, and we can walk right down on the bank. If this was the middle of the summer, this area would still be submerged, but right now we can walk down to the water's edge, and we can see, for example, a stump that was cut probably over 40 years ago when the lake was built. We can look up that way and see the Route 183 bridge, and we look down this way, we'll see across the lake, and we'll see all the way down the main channel of the lake. For perspective, let's walk down along this edge of the lake, and we're going to be coming to a peak, or to a point where we're going to see Spring Creek, the Spring Creek section of the lake, turn to the right. At this intersection, you can see buoys in the middle of the lake that say no wake. That means that when you get to this area, if you came up the main channel, which we're looking down right now, you could be going full speed with the boat, with your boat. But when you get to here, you need to reduce to idle speed to go back the channel. And the channel that we're looking at right now, that we're coming up on, is Spring Creek. Spring Creek runs back along Skinner's Loop, which we'll be hiking, and you'll see from the lower trail, you'll see Spring Creek. And Spring Creek was the site of a lot of bungalows and summer residences, and from what I understand, even some full-time residences. If we look across the lake, in the distance you can see a no wake sign, just like the one that you can see here on this side of the lake. And beyond that no wake sign is the right next to it is the Multipurpose Trail system between mile marker 6 and mile marker 7. We did another video on that, I believe it was on January 17th or so. So you can just see, I don't know how well you can see it with the film, but you can actually see the trail going back through the woods back there. Anyway, let's head back up to the lower section, or the lower trail of Skinner's Loop. Okay, we're down at the water's edge, and we're going to walk back up the trail to join up with the lower trail of Skinner's Loop. And as you walk back up the trail here on Skinner's Loop, walk back here and see, looks a little bit like a strange tree, but it's not. It's a utility pole that was sawed off when the lake was built. It's now moss covered. But that would indicate that there were telephone and power lines back in this area. And up in the woods, again, you can see a utility pole that was trimmed off when the lake was built. You know, evidencing the fact that there was probably a bunch of housing, bungalows, that kind of thing back here. Possibly even a few farms. Probably kind of boring to keep seeing these, but here's another utility pole. So this kind of tells us that this road was probably a main thoroughfare getting in and out of the homes that were back here. On the left-hand side of the trail, if you can see my foot, I'm tapping on an old concrete pole that would have been some sort of curbing or possibly some sort of a fence post. And in reality, I just realized what it is. If you look over here, there's another one on the other side. So what we're looking at is a set of steps that went down towards the water's edge from this road. If we dug a little bit, and there we can see it, I can actually see it. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. There's the remnants of steps under the leaves. And I'm gonna I'd have to dig pretty far to get to it, but this was a set of steps. It was pretty wide and led down to the water's edge from the road. As I'm walking up the lower trail of Skinner's Loop, I'm looking on both sides, and I'm seeing old utility poles that were cut off. I'm seeing some steps and looking for other signs of foundations for buildings that were back here. I believe that there was at least one farm back here, and that a woman who grew up here on her grandparents' farm came back from California and was able to find the steps that were outside of her grandparents' farm. So we're in an area where the Spring Creek ran alongside, and there were farms and homes and bungalows along the trail here. And as I mentioned, we're constantly looking along the side of the trail, see if we can find remnants of foundations or buildings. And lo and behold, as we walk along, we find this concrete pad and a piece of wood growing up through it, or standing up through it, that looks like it would have been an old handrail or fence post. So I'm guessing that was either part of a foundation for a building, or it was part of a step system, a stair system. And you can see, maybe you can see, there's remnants of the concrete that were part of this structure laying down here on the ground now. And now on the right side of the trail, if you can see it with the camera shot, here's another set of steps leading up to, I'm sure, what would have been some sort of structure. So let's see if we can climb. I can see remnants of concrete here as well. Let's climb up into the woods, see if we can find anything up here. Can't really see anything other than a very sharp drop here, which kind of looks like, as I interpret this, we may be standing up on top of the area where there was once a structure. And I believe that to be true, because as we head over to the corner, we will see a piece of an old foundation Almost looks like some sort of cornerstone. And I could be made to believe that this looks like a driveway going down through here, or some sort of lane. So let's head back down to the trail and see if we can find anything down there that tells us whether that might have been a driveway or a walkway or something. Believe it or not, this looks like it used to be an old driveway or walkway. It's so overgrown now that it's hard for you to see it on film, but it sure looks like it was an old driveway that went up to a building or a home site up in the woods. And here we are on the right-hand side of the lower loop, and we can see a stone wall that was either part of a structure or was part of a driveway. It's kind of my guess that it was part of a driveway, because there's a stone wall over on the other side as well. And I'm guessing that this was some sort of an entryway or a lane that headed up to a structure. And let's just walk a little further. And the wall ends up here. And I don't see any signs of a building foundation. So I'm going to just assume that this wall was part of the driveway system. It was a stone wall, hand built. Let's head back out to the main trail. Here's another old telephone pole or utility pole, and you can see there's staples in the side of it with a grounding wire going down into the ground. I'm not sure what year they started doing that, but they started grounding the utility poles against lightning strikes by putting the cable down into the ground like that. So we've come to what I would consider to be the end of the lower loop, or the lower trail, I should say, of Skinner's Loop. And it's kind of hard to see, but there's a flat area along the side here that would seem to indicate that when there were houses and bungalows back here, that was probably part of the lawn area, if you will, or the area that the foundations were built on. So we're going to head back up the hill, and this is not a very steep hill. That's why I chose this path. Going back up the other way, the hill would have been much steeper. This way it's a little easier walking. We've completed the lower, or the woods loop, I would say, of Skinner's Loop, and we're at the intersection where there's a trail marker showing that you can go either way. We chose to go to the left today. Right behind the trail marker are the remnants, some old concrete that was part of some sort of concrete pad or part of a foundation. Old foundation over here on the pile, all of it moss covered. So there was some sort of structure at the intersection here before the lake was built, and that structure would have then been demolished. So again, this is the trail we took earlier today to the left. Here we are back at the old hand pump, and we're going to continue walking back out. This time we're going to take the lower road of Skinner's Loop, and we'll walk down along, kind of along the water's edge. Now we're coming up on an intersection. When we came in today, we came in on the upper road, which I kind of consider this one right here. So on the way out, we're going to take the lower road and take it down along the water's edge. And on this lower road, well, we won't have any hills. It's just kind of flat the whole way back to the Lake Road parking lot. And this road that we're on right now, by the way, or this trail, was originally Lake Road. Lake Road ran all the way out here to the bungalows and farms and structures that were out here along Spring Creek before the lake was built. We've come out of the trail, out of the woods, and we're out in the field road section now, looking straight ahead. That was the road we came down. That's the upper trail, what I call the upper trail of Skinner's Loop. And we came down that hill on the way in today. On the way out, we're going to head out the lower road in front of us. And here's another example of how the birdhouses are configured with sort of tin partway up so the squirrels can't get in there. And that's where the birds can get in, but the squirrels can't climb the pole because they can't get traction on that sheet metal. Here's a nice view of Lake Road, or what used to be Lake Road. It's now what I call the lower road of Skinner's Loop. And all these fields that you see in this panorama were destined to become part of a state park campgrounds until the state bowed out, either ran out of money or decided not to do it politically. And so the land is now owned and managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and has been since the lake was built. And even after all these years, with the lake having been built, there's still old fences that exist. These would have been, I'm thinking, more like cattle fences or boundary fences. And it's just amazing that they've survived through all the weather. You can see down here, there's a big tree that's fallen down on the fence, so that one didn't make it, but interesting that this stuff is still here. Kind of nice that even on this, like this section of the lower loop of Skinner's Loop, the lower trail, and this is Lake Road, they're still taking the time to fill in with gravel and also to dig some drainage trenches off to the side to make sure that the water drains and the erosion doesn't wash the road out. This is an example of a game trail. Here we are on Lake Road. This is a game trail that goes down into a field, and as you can see, that field, at least last year, if not this year, was growing corn. And the animals, particularly the deer, would head down into the fields and graze on the feed on the corn, and then come back up to the top here to find bedding areas. And they also have water down at the lake, so this is an ideal place for the deer. They have everything they need, and as you can see, the fields are quite large. It's my understanding that the Army Corps of Engineers leases these fields, or I'm not sure how to describe it. They either hire or lease these fields to the Pennsylvania State Game Commission, and they're the ones that manage the fields, decide what to plant, when to harvest it, and the idea is to provide cover and food for the wildlife in the area. So if you want to kind of shorten that description, the State Game Commission, Pennsylvania State Game Commission, takes care of wildlife management in the area, and they're either paid to do it or leased out to do it by the Army Corps of Engineers. This is a prime example of a game trail, probably a deer trail, that leads up into the thickest brush you can imagine. Provides great cover for them. They can go up and down this trail, find a great bedding place away from predators and away from humans, and then head back down here to come down to the fields to feed and head down to the lake to get water. And headed down the trail towards us are two horseback riders. This is a great trail for them. The Lake Road Trail is a great trail for them. Provides good footing for the horses and beautiful view, nice open area. Hi, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good, thanks. Nice day for a horseback ride. We turned the last corner on the lower road, or the lower trail of Skinner's Loop. we're coming back to where this all started today. And in just a few steps, you'll be able to see the intersection where the Multipurpose Trail heads off to the right and the left. And if we take the left, we'll end up going back up the hill to the Lake Road parking lot, which is what we're going to do today. So here's the intersection of the trail in front of us. You can see two trail marker signs, one on the right and one straight ahead of us. And we're going to follow the road straight ahead and take the road up the hill, take Lake Road up the hill to the Lake Road parking lot. Right now we're at the end of the Skinner's Loop Trail, and we are at the side, we're looking at the side of Lake Road. We can see an old foundation over there, and there's pieces of the foundation that are sort of stacked up on top of each other. Not sure what the building was, but there was some sort of structure here that was demolished when the lake was built. So here we are at the main Lake Road intersection where we started today. That way would take us on the Multipurpose Trail. This way takes us to Skinner's Loop and also to the Multipurpose Trail. So now we're going to head back up the hill, up Lake Road. And as I turn the corner, we should see the gate at the top of the hill. And our car is parked just beyond the gate. How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Great day for a walk out here, huh?
Yeah, beautiful out.
Yeah. And just to complete this video, here we are back at the yellow gate at the Lake Road parking lot. We can see cars up in the parking lot ahead of us, and this is where we're going to end what we call the Skinner's Loop Trail.